All right, folks. Sad moment, the final session of Diesel Connect, but we are definitely going out with a bang. We're going to have a shop owner roundtable here. Make sure that you have the app ready. This is a heavy Q&A session. You're going to be able to pick some of the brains, of the people that are really doing something special and doing it really well in this industry. I'm going to allow our moderators to introduce our panel, but I get the honor of introducing our moderators. So, first, I'm sure you've never heard this name throughout the week. The hardest working man in show business, Peter Cooper, is going to be one of our moderators. Appreciate having him again up here. And then our Chief Customer Officer, John Whittet, here from Fullbay. We're going to welcome them up to the stage. And like I said, they will introduce the rest of the panel. So warm welcome for Peter and John.
Appreciate that. All right. Hello, everybody. How you doing? Excellent. I am John Whittet. I am Fullbay's Chief Customer Officer, which means I am responsible for all of you. Getting customers up and running on Fullbay, solving problems, identifying opportunities, helping you all get the most out of the platform. And so we are the last session here at Diesel Connect 2025. And for the first time ever, we are also live streaming this session to shops all over the US. So we've got people in the room, we've got people tuning in from all over the place. We've got a great shop owner roundtable for you today. And then really encompassing the last 3 days here at Diesel Connect, we're going to talk about what it takes to build a better shop. Many owners are spending 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week in the shop trying to build your business. And the panelists we'll introduce in a few minutes have built those systems, have built the teams and the processes and the information and reporting that they need to be able to not only step away from the business when they need to, but grow those businesses into really impactful, powerful organizations. Joining me today is a man that probably needs no introduction, but I'll introduce him anyway, Peter Cooper.
Thank you.
And then I will welcome our panelists up on stage, and we'll have everybody introduce themselves as well. And while folks are walking up, I'll do another show of hands. Whose is this the first Diesel Connect for you? Excellent. And my hand's up too. This is my first Diesel Connect. It has been an amazing 3 days. We are talking about ways to be more efficient, opportunities to use Fullbay, places to integrate. I've heard folks talk about vacuum trucks and opportunities for mobile repair. And so we'll get into some of these topics here today. All right. A reminder that you can submit questions via Slido on the app. If you have a question, you can also raise your hand, and we'll take questions live too. We've got a few things to start us out with. But before we do, I'm going to pass the mic down to our presenters. Give us a little sense of you, your shop, where you're coming from, and we'll go from there. Sound good? Of course.
My name is Mandy McWilliams. I am from Bascom Truck and Auto in Des Moines, Iowa.
Use that one.
Okay. Dick Bascom is my name, and I started Bascom Truck and Auto in 1975. These are our children, and they weren't born yet in 1975. But lucky for me, now they operate the business, and I do other things almost every day. We're in Des Moines, Iowa.
I am Mike Bascom, and I started on the night shift as a mechanic, moved to the day shift in a service vehicle, and then into the office, and I'm now the general manager and VP of operations.
My name's Keith McMaster. Excuse me. I own Fireweed Heavy Truck Equipment Repairs up in Edmonton, Alberta. Been a mechanic for 30 plus years. Started the company in 2007. I consider us a small company, but most people don't. We got 14 techs. We run a shop and 3 service trucks.
Brandon Staley, original founder of Transwest Mobile and CEO of our Nom and Hobbs group of companies. You've already been introduced.
I'm going to introduce Peter Cooper, Sen Consulting.
Excellent. So we'll start off with a general question. And again, we're talking about building better shops. Seems like a good tip would be to bring your kids in as early as possible. But give me the highest level sense, if you could distill it down to a word or a phrase on what you attribute to a good shop and what has proven you well as you build your business. Give me a sense of what that looks like. Get us started strong.
I would say honesty and integrity, treating our customers right. We believe that we can treat our customers right and treat our employees right. And I think that culture is behind the success.
A culture that scales.
Try again. There we go. I think that honesty and integrity is the most important thing in our business. And we believe that we can treat our customers right, which means fairly. And we can also treat our employees right and fair at the same time. And like you said, that scales, it works at every size. And I believe that's behind our success.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it's been successful for us. It was harder in the beginning than it is now. These two are a lot smarter than I am, and so that's been helpful. As far as bringing your kids in, I think that's important if it works. I did not encourage them to join the business. They both ended up there, and I'm grateful. But really, you need to have an organization that you don't have to answer for a bunch of crooked things that you're doing and people you're taking advantage of, and you want to be able to sleep at night.
I think it's helpful for us that we as owners are there every day. And so if something is bothering a tech or a customer, they know where to find us. And they can come and ask questions, work things out, and move on.
Ditto.
Yeah, like I think that from that perspective, I think all of us have a challenge of like, you know, I appreciated the honesty and integrity point because that's, I think without that you are nothing in your business, right? But being able to just be available to your team, your customers, your employees, whatever it is a big deal in trying to build a successful business for sure. It's a lot of work, right? I mean, it's a lot of, those of us who are in the room who know and do this with our employees, you guys know it's an immense amount of time and effort and energy, and it's an emotional toll, but it is kind of what we've committed to in that business. And so I think success comes from your ability to show that to your employee base and your customers, without a doubt. Yeah.
Well, and certainly what I've found is bringing on those first several people in particular can be the hardest hires, because not only are you going from being somebody who's able to do it all themselves, starting to delegate, but then building up that culture that's going to continue to grow and scale. How are you all thinking about hiring people? You use hiring tests to determine good candidates, and what are some of the particular attributes that you're looking for when you bring on folks to help you grow those shops?
We've evolved in that process. In the early days, back in the mid-'70s when I was doing it, I'd say, can you fix anything? Yes, you're in. We've evolved to a little better system now.
I didn't feel like I was trained or well able to do the hiring when he stepped more away from the business. And so we did lots and lots and lots of interviews, and I wasn't particularly happy with them. But we moved to a system and we changed it gradually over time. But we do use a hiring test. We use a general mechanical aptitude test. It's not so much what you know, but how you think. Yeah, it's not how to fix after treatment systems. And when we first got the test, we had tried several and they weren't necessarily all helpful. So if you go out and look for one, try it yourself and see if the results seem valid with people you know. And that's what we did. And we finally came to one that we believe is valid. We gave it to employees whose skills we know, and we set what the standard is based on that. And then we started using it with applicants. We also gave it to our kids, our friends. I wondered, is there an age at which you're able to do this? Turns out not necessarily, because it's aptitude, it's how you think. So we do that, and then we also do one from job behaviors that has to do with whether or not you're going to be happy and successful as a diesel tech, and we think that's been helpful too. Aptitude test.
Do you follow up with those tests as well?
How do you mean?
Continuously. Is it something that you will test again in A year, 2, 5?
I don't test again because if I didn't hire them, I'm not interested. And if they work for me, I know. So we have changed our aptitude test recently, I would say in the last 6 months, and we did add some actual knowledge questions. And we don't necessarily not hire someone based on those knowledge questions, but we want to know where they are on the spectrum of ABC. And so we've added a few questions that might help with that.
To be clear, the test that we're talking about isn't about their ability to repair trucks and what do you know about injectors on DDs. It's more, do they think mechanically or not? So if this pulley turns this way, which way will this pulley turn or this gear? It's that kind of a test. If you have this much weight on this end of the teeter-totter and the fulcrum is here, how much weight will it take to, you get the idea? This is not a truck repair test. This is a mechanical aptitude test. How do they think? Because we think if they are mechanical, we can train the other stuff into them. If they're not mechanical, we don't bother with that.
Yeah, I think I would fill this in by saying how many, like just in the room by raise of hands, how many struggle with mechanical skill set of your technicians? Okay. How many struggle with intangible quality issues with your technicians? Communication skills, ability to be honest, other things like now that I got the hands coming up. So I think when you look at another piece to this is, you know, how are you measuring those intangible qualities that potential candidates have, right? And because those are the things that are going to provide challenges to the business owners a lot more than the mechanical skills, right? Like, does this individual come to work? Can they put their pants on right? Do they tie their shoes right? Can they do these things? And I mean, we laugh, but it's true, right? I mean, we deal with these challenges, and so I think I think those are some of the things that we have to be looking for as well, and finding ways to discover what intangible qualities an individual might have, and do they culturally fit, and are they going to be a good steward of the business, right? Are they going to be a good soldier in what you're trying to get done, for sure?
And if any of you guys want a good date night activity, take the personality test and then have your spouse take it and then compare it on a date night. It's really fun. Yeah, and it's actually a good skill because it
makes that dinner real lively, doesn't it?
It kind of gives you an idea of what you're going to get from that test and the accuracy of it. And they're absolutely right. I always recommend people take that test, give it to your best tech, and say, this is who we want to hire. We want more of this.
I think one of the hardest questions we ask in our interview process is, what does integrity mean to you? Because there's a lot of definitions of integrity, and we want to know what that means to the individuals, because it's a pivotal part of our business. We don't have Cat or Cummins or International's name to sit on. It's our own name. And we need to make sure that they are being honest and upfront, and when they make a mistake, they man up to it, and then we can deal with those.
So here's an insider tip for all of you. If you come and apply at Bascom Truck and Auto in Des Moines, the answer to the question of what does integrity mean to you is, and this is good, you'll know this, doing the right thing every time, whether anyone will ever know or not. If no one will ever find out, I'm still going to do the right thing. That's integrity.
And then, of course, the interview is the start of the process, right? That's day one, day zero. How do you continue that throughout an employment life cycle? And have you found any resources that work well for you to continue that education, whether it's the soft side or the mechanical skills and beyond that?
As independents, it's difficult to get factory training. We've found some from vendors, but a lot of times they seem more like sales pitches than actual training. We have a tech that recently started with us who has been to TriTech in Texas, and we're getting ready to send 2 people there. We've heard good things about it. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, going back to kind of maybe the continuous improvement of the soft qualities, I think it's as we as leaders of businesses, how are we interacting with our people, right? Are we spending time with them? Are we talking to them? Do we get to know them on a level? Are we recognizing behaviors within them that maybe are falling off or something's changed in their life? And then are we initiating conversations with them to show friendship and care? Sometimes that's really challenging because employees can be very frustrating sometimes, right? And so you have to kind of put that aside and try to figure out, from a soft quality or from those intangible perspective. I think that's at least in my mind, it's the best way to do that. Is you've got to stay connected to them, you got to talk to them, you got to find out what's going on, and that can be challenging as an owner for sure, without a doubt. You're dealing with a lot of things there.
And then continuing the kind of the talent conversation, in terms of managing that sort of talent, have you found that tiering techs, putting people into different buckets, giving them specialized paths, is that something you've explored or implemented? And if so, how's that worked for you?
Try to avoid it. We try to avoid it only because you pigeonhole somebody and they get good at that and they get good at nothing else. So you got a guy that can do brakes like there's no tomorrow, that's great. But when you got something else rolling in the shop, you can't do it. He's going to sit there with his thumb on his, where? and you've got a body that you're paying. So we train our guys. We have an apprenticeship program in Canada, which is quite nice. It's different than how you guys do things here. But we make sure that our apprentices are very, very well trained even before they go to their first year of school. The school that's in our town is called Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. And I've got letters from them stating it was great having our employees in for first year of school because they didn't have to hold their hand. They already knew how to run electrical. They already knew safety items. They already knew how to hold a hammer and not hit themselves in the head, right? It's this end of the wrench goes here. You're not a welder, right? Things like that. It's very important to give your tech a broad base, unless you're a specialty shop. If you're a specialty shop and all you do is trannies and diffs, what good does it do to teach your guys to rebuild engines, right?
We agree. We like ours to be well-rounded and be able to fix everything. I would say a couple years ago, maybe, so in a history of 50 years, a couple years ago, we made, just yesterday, we did create tiers, if that's what you want to call it, A, B, C tech, and some standards that go along with that. Having never worked in any other shop, I have no idea what those terms mean in any other shop. We just made it up ourselves, and we have a piece of paper that says, as a student, we expect you can do these things, and as a C tech, you should be able to do these, as a B tech and as an A tech. And then A techs qualify to become a lead tech when there's an opening, and we assigned pay scales to those. It wasn't so important to us, but I think it's helpful in a generation that always wants to know, what's my next thing? What's my next step? How do I get to the next level? What is the next level? And what do I need to do to achieve it? What skills and what knowledge am I lacking? And it seems to help with that. It also has helped us identify people within our organization who want to move into management and leadership and where that interest is, and that's been helpful.
Yeah, I would say, just to add into that like people want to be challenged in general, right? Like, I think people feel accomplishment and challenge, and so whatever we can do to challenge them through it, like the question says, of like a tiered system. I mean, it's definitely from my perspective, is a great way to look at that. I mean, it provides challenges and accomplishment, and I think individuals thrive in situations like that.
Do you all incentivize techs to get particular certifications or specialize in some of those ways?
Look, there's a lot of ways to do that. Can you incentivize? Sure. I think there's a lot of ways to dangle the carrot, right? And so if it works for your business, then that's a good way to do that. You always want to make sure that not only incentivizing, but then are you providing the path to be able to do that, right? Sometimes look at it and say, we're making the investment, and is this individual going to be here after the investment that I make? And so it's kind of a bit of a cart in front of the horse, but you can for sure. And if it works for your business and you think it's going to be the right move, then there can be some success. And I think with all things, it's what's the see-through-itness of whatever it is that you're doing, right? If it's just going to be kind of, a half-witted effort to try to put some sort of tiering program, or we're going to incentivize you to do this, but then we don't really see that incentive through, or we don't make it a priority, it's probably not going to stick, right? And just like with everything else that you do, it probably doesn't stick.
One angle you might think about with a tiered system that I've found is it can be a powerful tool for hiring. A lot of technicians want to see the path. They want to know, what can I achieve? How much money can I make? And when you're really clear with people about what you expect from them, it tends to leave a lot less uncertainty in the employees.
And so all this comes around to people in the door, people working in the shop. And then the number one question we're getting is, how do we turn that into a process? How do we be able to articulate what we want folks to do, how to do it, and then be able to start to track performance, incentivize the performance and the outputs that you want? How would you recommend that a shop gets started, maybe from nothing, documenting that process for the first time, or then at a more mature level, running those processes in a way that you feel is scalable?
Yeah, I would say, if I can jump in on this, I would say that all of us in this room and all of us are shop owners, the institutional knowledge is here, right? And so all of us own, it's like we all know how to do all of the things up here. And so sometimes we get frustrated that in our businesses, maybe our managers or individuals aren't operating the business the way that, but have we actually ever taken what's in this brain and wrote it down somewhere and been able to actually pass that to somebody else, right? And that process is daunting, because when you sit down and start to do it, you're like, wow, there's a lot of stuff up in this brain and I don't know how to get all this out of here. One suggestion that I can make is that there's a lot of tools nowadays that can help do this, right, guys? AI is an incredible. Anybody using AI? Raise your hands. Using AI in your businesses? Okay. Whatever your personal feelings are on this, there are tools out there that can help do this, right? I mean, record your conversation, plug it into ChatGPT, and all of a sudden you have a process. Like, you're sitting there talking about how we price parts in this thing. It's amazing that you're having that conversation with somebody in your business. Record that conversation, throw it into ChatGPT. Now you have a written process off of a conversation you just had. It's a very easy way to do it without it feeling cumbersome. Because if you sit down to do it, you go, all right, you guys, we got 50 years, right? I mean, it's like, hold on, wait a minute. How am I going to do this with 50 years of institutional knowledge, right? And it's all up here and it's in these brains and everywhere else. It's like, you got to start in a spot, and there are tools out there to be able to do that. And you guys can find software, but just start getting it written down is in my opinion, is that's one of the easiest ways to start doing it right now, for sure.
I will admit we have probably zero written processes.
But we have process.
We do have processes, and like you say, they're up here, but Mike and I are there every day, and we see what's happening, and we talk to our people regularly, and so we kind of know where there's a problem and where there's not. And so when I wanted a new process for something, I sat down with our service advisors, and we talked through a system, and we came up with a system, and I thought it was great. It didn't really implement that well. And I don't think there's a problem with the system. I think it's just hard to change our habits.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think it's tough to do that, right? Yeah.
We do have a handbook, and it talks about some of the things that we expect, but also some of those things are shared just in person.
I think there are some tools, though. It would be good. I think it's a wise use. We've started doing it in our businesses recently, and it helps. It helps a lot. Record the conversation, plug it into ChatGPT, and all of a sudden you have a process written that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that we actually got there. Like, we actually wrote this down. I didn't even mean to. So it works.
When I think of processes, I think, because I'm a mechanic, I think of mechanical processes. This is how you do a wheel seal. TMC, one of the guys here that are one of the vendors here, they actually have all that already written down. It's daunting. My wife has written down her processes. She's an accountant. She's written down how she wants certain things done for the ladies that work for her. That's how she gets it done. And she's encouraged me to do it how I do things, because you're right, up here is where it is. You've been doing this for 30 years. The guy that's brand new doesn't know how. The worst part about it for me is I don't like having processes in place, because then you don't think anymore. You read it, it's there, that's how you do it. If you ever run into a problem, you no longer have a guy that can think on their feet. You got a guy that can read this and wait for somebody to show up, right? Processes are great, but they gotta have some sort of leeway in them where you still allow the person to think, come up with a better way to do things. And then you have the ability to amend that process, right? It just can't be written in stone, this is the way it is, and this is the way it'll always be.
I think one thing though, the original question was, how do you start writing policies? I think you start writing it with the biggest pain point you have. You don't have to sit down and create a whole process of this is everything A to B and I'm going to do it in order. Just do the thing, start with something that is the issue. Solve the small issue or the big issue, whichever one you want to tackle, and then you've started a way of doing it. But remember one thing, this is what I tell everybody, if it's not in writing, it's not real. Just like with the tech on the work order. If you didn't write it down and said, this is how we do it, it's really hard to hold somebody accountable to you didn't do it right when you've never put it in writing.
And I think on top of that, what I'm hearing is step one is really having a process. And so do you have a standard way to do things? Can you train people on how to do those? Getting to the point then of documenting, tracking progress and performance against those standards is what gets you from good to great. How do you handle that across multiple locations or multiple shops? Because you're talking about, Minnie, for instance, having you on site, being able to teach some of these things. You can't be in multiple places at once. How do you manage that?
Unknown.
Here's the way we do it.
right?
We just have one location. No problem.
There we go.
You look at that like I think of this in a way of, it's like the Chick-fil-A model. Like, how do they get everybody to say my pleasure, right? How do they get their, I mean, every Chick-fil-A you pull into, they all say it, right? And so how do you establish that is really challenging when you have multiple sites and multiple locations. And we as in our business, we have multiple sites and multiple locations. And do you have key managers that the way that I would think about it first and foremost is if you're owning multiple locations, do you have key people that think, breathe, and believe the same way that you do? And will they act in your stead exactly how you would act if you were there? And when you start to just look at those key individuals, if you don't have them yet, they would be key people to bring close to you so that as you expand, at least, that, hey, in that area, that person has been close enough to me. I have spent enough time with them that they think and breathe the same way that I do and will act the same way that I would in this location.
So it sounds like are you starting a manager mentor program internally before
sure, yeah.
you send them out to run a store?
Yeah, without a doubt, right? You have to do that, right? You just, and always is not perfect. Those of us who have built multiple locations, you have hired a manager and just put a manager in a chair, you can see the challenges that come from that, right? It's very difficult to hope that person that you hired embodies who you are and what you expect your business to be, without a doubt. So building that from within would clearly be the best way to do it from what we've seen.
We don't have multiple locations, but we do have multiple people able to do the different jobs that need done. And so we've got a lead tech structure, and the lead tech gets the duties for his team from the service advisor and then divides those up on his team based on what he thinks the people can do the best. And also, as a lead tech, he's being cross-trained to take over in the office when that service advisor is gone for some reason, whether that's vacation or called in sick. And so that's one of the ways that we're able to be comfortable being away, is we know that we have people there that know how we do things, and we've empowered them to make decisions. They may still make wrong decisions, that happens, but it's not something that I'm going to chastise them for making that decision, because at least they were willing to make it.
Mm-hmm. And I've had a couple conversations this week on using Fullbay, using some of the metrics, efficiency, tech home, for instance, to look from a quantitative perspective on how different folks are doing. Have you implemented that in your shop? And have you found things that work particularly well to incentivize folks to think about those outputs?
We do use Fullbay reports. We think, and I'm waiting for Fullbay to get back to me on this, but
on my list.
what we value for productivity, I don't think is what is published in a report. We think productivity means how long did my guy spend on a job compared to how long did I charge for that job. And so I download information out of Fullbay and put it in Excel and run a formula. And we give that information to them every week. That's on tickets that were closed on the prior week. And then they're bonused on success in that area. We also publish for them their utilization. We expect them to be 90% or above on utilization. Someone asked in one of our classes if you can achieve 90% or above. And we found that our older techs who worked on a time clock where you stick the card in and punch it are much better at utilization, because on the time clock they punched one spot to the next, to the next, to the next, and they have continued to do that in Fullbay, whereas some people that didn't work under that system, they punch off the job and then they go smoke and they go to the bathroom and then they come to the service advisor like, okay, what next? And it's been 15 minutes that they're not clocked on to anything, which shows up in their utilization.
Look, I would even go and then that's a great point. I think the reports in Fullbay are great, and that does provide a lot of key metrics, and hopefully everybody's using them to try to drive your business. I love Tech Home. Anybody here Tech Home user? Not the Tech Home, excuse me, the Tech Overview. You guys have the Tech Overview pulled up? Tech Overview is great, right? Because it's very color coded. Those of us who are a little slow in life, we can look at it and go red, green, yes, no, right? It makes it pretty easy for us. And we go, so even that is a very good way to help provide some additional training and motivation right there. Is like you open Tech Overview and you're like, oh, I got 4 technicians who are in red right now that aren't punched into anything. Let me get in front of them. Even something as simple as that is what we've learned is like, motivation and training, a lot of times you can take that on if you're dealing with something that maybe your technician is not doing correctly, if you deal with it in the moment that you notice it, right? And so Fullbay provides visibility to that. And you can see, hey, this technician is struggling with this, and I'm going to go address that right now. So it doesn't need some formal training. It doesn't need this, because a lot of times technicians don't even know that they might be failing at something, right? They have no idea that they might be falling short in something they're doing. And if you can just go approach them with that and say, hey, you seem to be struggling clocking into your work orders. What's going on? And he goes, oh, I have 4 thumbs and no fingers. I don't know what to do with, my iPad or whatever. It's like, oh, well, that's the problem. Let's go fix that, right? So you can solve that in the moment, I think.
Some of it too is, this isn't necessarily just Fullbay, but just ask your techs. Ask them what they think they need more training on. They'll tell you. If they don't feel comfortable doing wheel seals, then they'll tell you. Yeah. And build a culture where it's okay not to know. You'd much rather, I think all of us would much rather have a tech who doesn't know how to do something than try to do it and fail and ruin an axle or something like that. So I would ask them.
And I do the same thing internally with my team. I subscribe to the adage, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And so it doesn't have to be a tool to beat somebody up, but it's a tool to understand where there might be an issue or conversely an opportunity. If I see somebody at the top of the leaderboard week after week after week, I want to say, what's working? What are they doing right? How do I train the rest of my team to do exactly that? So that data is really powerful.
That's a good point too. Don't always focus on the negative. Maybe focus somewhat on the positive about what's going right in the shop and how do you get everybody else on board with that.
So let's shift a little bit now to process and to growth. Thinking about a smaller shop, and there's endless array of priorities. There's 1,000 things you could do. There's probably 100 things you should do, but you can only do 10 of them. And so we've got a question on, what's the best first step? So thinking about a lone wolf shop, for instance, looking to expand, what would you advise being the best way to expand? Is it a shop? Is it a mobile unit? Is it expanding services?
What are you comfortable with?
You're going to have to decide what's the priority for you on that. For example, if you have unlimited capital, you can go ahead and buy a building and outfit it with all the stuff that you need, and you can hire some people, and you're in the shop business. If you don't have unlimited capital, then you're going to have to say, well, another truck and another guy is going to be easier for me to cash flow than all that other stuff. The trade-off is now you're probably not changing clutches and doing transmissions and overhauling engines because you're only mobile. There's money to be made in mobile. So if I were going to expand, I would have to decide between what jobs I want to do versus how much capital I have available to me for this expansion.
Yeah, from a personal life experience, I can tell you, because my business is mostly mobile. Now we do have physical shop locations as well, but when we started, we just had mobile technicians, right? And so we didn't get into our first shop space for about 18 months. So we went from 18 months from one technician to 3 or even maybe 4. And then once we had 4 mobile technicians, then we rented a small space, and that was kind of how we did that. But our expansion efforts have been on mobile. We've always started our locations generally with mobile service, and then opened shops eventually behind that. Once you built up enough, like you said, enough cash, right? You had enough capital, enough cash to be able to do it. Yeah.
I think one piece of advice for anyone that's making this leap is, and obviously if there's only one tech and they're lone wolf, this person's a mechanic. The best thing you can do for yourself is invest in yourself. Learn the business knowledge, the numbers you need now. It's a lot easier now when it's just you than when you've got 10 guys and you've got a catastrophic problem and you're trying to diagnose your business. Figure it out now when you don't necessarily have to have it.
And there's always lots of different ways to expand. Again, is it a shop? Is it a truck? Is it a different type of service? Is it a different type of unit? A question for the Bascoms: are you all doing retail and light duty as well, or are you doing only heavy duty?
We do light duty. We do some automotive. We have a few automotive mechanics. So pretty much the gamut. In fact, you can find a farm tractor in there occasionally, or a motorcycle. Occasionally you can find a lawnmower. So our bulk of our business is heavy duty trucks, but there are service vans, people, local electrician, for example, he might have 4 or 5 or 6 vans. So we're doing whatever they need.
Any particular learnings, gotchas, opportunities of marketing in different ways, staffing in different ways for those types of businesses?
You got to have staff that can work on what you're going to work on.
Wow. So
my truck mechanics can't necessarily work on light duty pickups and stuff. And not efficiently, that's the thing. And we hire people, maybe this guy's only been in the automotive world, but he wants to work for us. We have automotive work to do. But then we'll kind of train him along until eventually he's also a truck mechanic.
And also, don't be afraid to say no. I don't have anybody I think that can do that. It's okay. Mm-hmm. There are places that can do that. And it costs a lot to flounder, and even more depending on how wrong you get it.
For me, I hired people. I did all that. I screwed up and fought for years to try and play catch up. I'm a good mechanic. I'm really not the greatest at being a business manager. So I brought on people that could do that for me, right? That was the toughest part. Went from a lone wolf guy after 6 years to hiring a second guy in a truck, and realizing that all of a sudden I became a service writer / parts manager / parts runner / and I wasn't pulling wrenches as much as I was during the day. And then he'd finish and go home at night, and I'd work all night long pulling wrenches. So, it was something that I had to do. Had to hire somebody that could come in and help out with that stuff. Get somebody that's smarter than you are. It's probably the best advice you could have.
Just because you own the business doesn't mean that you're going to be running it necessarily. Find somebody else that's able to better. Yep.
And you don't have to be. It's okay not to be the best at everything. Yep. Don't be hard on yourself if you're not good at something. That's fine. If it's not your genius, don't do it. Just pay someone else to do it and go do what you're really good at and what you're profitable at. And it's the same way with the type of work in your business. Sometimes you realize that you think that you've got a fleet or a certain type of work is really good business because we're busy doing it. And then you realize there's no profit in it. There's no profit in paying your guy overtime to change oil on a Sunday in the customer's lot. That kind of stuff. So you have to constantly reevaluate the economics of your business and what's actually your profit center.
And a lot of this, we talked about capital investment, for instance, buying your first shop. And cash flow has come up multiple times over this week. And certainly there's that gap between you paying your guys, paying the guy to work overtime on a Sunday, and then getting paid for that job sometimes 15, 30, 45 plus days later. Have you all found any particular methods to allow you to invest, give you the capital and the cash flow to be able to deploy to grow in the ways that we're talking about?
So I learned many years ago the answer to cash flow problems. And here it is. This is at no extra charge. Whatever you paid for this seminar, this is included. Nothing helps cash flow like profit. I'm serious about that. Oftentimes people think they have a cash flow problem. They really have a profit problem. And so they say, well, we're short on cash flow right now. Yeah, well, how's your profit doing? So you need to look at your expenses. You need to look at your incomes. You need to look at how you're doing things. If your profit is what it should be, then eventually your cash flow is going to be what it should be too. Now the question specifically says, what about these large jobs? Well, you've got two choices. Either you can go to the bank and borrow money, assuming that you can go to the bank and borrow money, and that's an additional expense because it's interest, or you cannot do those jobs until you have earned enough profit that you can cash flow those jobs. Personally, I'm a big believer in not being in debt. And so I probably would do that second thing if it was me.
And I think especially like be wise along those same lines is like be wise at which jobs you're picking and who you're doing them for, right? Because there can be, this person, this FedEx driver, yeah, but you look at historically, that dude hasn't paid his bills on time for 6 years. You know what I mean? It's like, why, you're being your own worst enemy in that case, right?
And he always wants to fight about the bill.
And then he wants to fight about the bill afterwards, and then you end up taking it in the shorts. You take $800 off the bill because he wants to complain about it, and then he pays you 75 days later. Or worse yet, then he says, hey, sorry, by the way, I can't do that. I'm going to pay you $100 a week. And you sit there and go, that's your cash flow problem. So you're your own cash flow problem in a lot of ways, right? Because you decide to do business with people who aren't going to pay you.
I think a lot of shops are their own worst enemy. It's kind of back to the whole thing, if it's not your thing, don't do it. If you're not a bank, why are you a financial institution? And what I tell people is, perfect example, you can sometimes, if you work it out with your customers, take on a big job like an engine overhaul. Those are very parts intensive. Let them pay for it up front. At least the parts. I always encourage that. Don't take that risk. And also, if you are having cash flow problems, you're working with a really big fleet that's slow to pay, there are resources. You can use third-party factoring. And I get it costs a little bit, but if you look at the money, it costs less than a credit card. And everybody here would say, I'd take the credit card up front for an engine overhaul because I'd love to have that cash. Well, there are other ways. It was very successful for me, especially as you scale your business. If you grow super fast, even if you are very profitable, if you grow too fast, you will run out of cash. You will buy so many parts in a month that you won't be able to cover it. And cash flow is absolutely king in business, and it will destroy you if you do not understand it.
Yeah, one of the things that we're starting to do now is ask for half up front. Got an engine job? I want $30,000. As a service tech, we now, before our techs leave the shop, we ask for $1,000. We pre-auth it. We do that. If you can't afford $1,000, you can't afford for me to come fix your truck or your piece of equipment. $1,000 is nothing. That doesn't go very far these days with repairs, right? Peter's right. Everything he says is dead on. Like you got to make sure that you don't take on more than you can chew, right? Like I've been there, done that. Ended up buying tooling that I couldn't afford, put it on credit. I always say to my wife, pay it off over 10 years. Don't worry about it. We'll get her done. Get myself in trouble doing that, but you know what? I make the customer happy by doing it. Make my wife unhappy.
Which one do you live with?
Neither. I live in a service truck. I would prefer to live with my wife, but yeah. But that's the truth though, right? Like you just got to be careful about what you're doing and how fast you expand. I could have expanded super fast, thank Christ for my wife that I didn't, because I'd have been screwed, because I could have taken on jobs like crazy and big jobs. And I mean big jobs, $100,000, $150,000 rebuilding dozers, no problem, easy. I can't afford that. She knew it. I didn't think about it. Having that support behind you, whether it's your employees or your family, to have a different view, it goes a long way too. It's having that support group.
We had the chief economist of the American Trucking Association here with us yesterday, talking about cost pressures with fleets and trailer volumes and the like. And so we're talking about profitability now. Having that conversation with customers, particularly if they're a long-time customer, they're used to a rate that you might have given them 5 years ago. How do you go about raising your rates, particularly in this environment where costs are so important to the end customer?
Our rates adjust every January. We evaluate starting October, November, and January 1st, the rates change.
How many here in the room are run a budget? Are you guys prepping a budget in your businesses? Raise your hands, a couple of you. Okay. Are you budgeting in price increases once a year, twice a year? Yeah? That's a good idea, right? You just set the stage in your budget for what you're prepping for, and you know that you're going to be doing it. And then that way it's already built into your expectation. I think sometimes in price increases, we all of a sudden have this fear, like fear takes over us, right? That you're like, oh no, if I raise that price by I went and got a Diet Coke out of the machine the other day. It was $2.75 for a can of Diet Coke, right? Like everybody is paying more for everything. And the truth is, I still pushed the button and I still drank the Diet Coke, right? We are our own worst enemy when it comes to raising our prices. We have value in the services that we provide. Fear should not dictate the price increases that we put into play. You do your research in the marketplace, right? You secret shop your calls, whatever it is that you're going to do. You find out what everybody's charging. Everybody kind of knows what the dealer's charging, and then you set your price. You know your value, and that's your value, right? And you cannot let fear take over. This whole idea in fear, you'll hear like some of your big customers that say, oh, well, the new guy down the street's going to do it for $120 an hour. Okay, sounds good.
But you won't do it forever.
That's right.
Right? I mean,
Well, that's just it. You sell your value. Right?
yeah. I mean, how many of you guys, by raise of hands, how many of your customers even know what you charge them? Yeah.
Per hour.
Per hour.
Per hour.
Do they know your labor rates?
We got customers that they know our final pricing.
Yeah.
But we
Why
sell
not?
them value. We sell them ourselves, right? And that's what
Without
you
a
want
doubt.
to sell. It's not a dollar value. It's you're getting this
Right.
for
Yeah.
that.
When you look at the receipt, anywhere you go, where do your eyes go? They go to the bottom of the page, right? So they go to the number at the bottom of the page, and that's what you look at. And value is determined. Value has already been determined in your brain before you even look at the number on that page, right? Your great steak that you ate the other night at the restaurant, the steak was wonderful, everything like that. The total at the bottom of the receipt doesn't matter, right? You had a wonderful time, you had a couple cocktails, steak was great, everything's perfect. It changes when the experience has been poor, right? And so the experience has been poor. Now, no matter what numbers on the bottom of that page, it's not going to matter. So I think when it goes to raising rates, it has to be way more based on the value that you provide and the service that you provide. And then the number just is what it is. So if you're not a very good value shop, like you're not providing value, then it doesn't matter what rate you charge, right? They're always going to be upset about that rate increase. But the truth is, every business that's out there is raising their prices. Everything is more expensive. And so we should not act in fear for that.
I think
kind
the
of
very
stuff.
first thing you need to do if you want to raise your rates is go into Fullbay and hit the button and take the labor rate off the work order.
For sure.
Because you need to start selling on value, but also sell the job. Because if you take the price away from them, in other words, what you charge per hour, then they can't talk about that. You've taken something away for them to talk about. People want to know how much to fix my truck. And when you give them that labor rate, now they've got something to chew on. Just take it away from them. Just say, no, it's $500 for a water pump. Bam, that's it, you're done. You don't have to talk about hourly rate anymore.
So we give our employees wage increases annually. And if I'm going to pay my people more every year, I can't not charge more for the work that they're doing. I also, while we're all uncomfortable to raise our rates because we're afraid someone might leave or be angry, I can't let myself become the cheapest place in town. If you were in here for the fleet conversation yesterday, those guys don't want the cheapest place in town. They want quality. And these last few years have been a little bit chaotic, and the economy has been unusual. And if you haven't raised your rates in that time, then and regularly in that time, then you're way behind, and your employees are probably being underpaid as well. So you have to stay on top of it. And I would rather raise them some every year than look at it 5 years down the road and find out I'm way, way, way below market. If I hadn't raised my rates in these last 5 years, where would I be now?
So I think part of the problem is how we determine what our rate should be. And many of us determine what our rate should be by seeing what Joe charges and what Harry charges and what the Kenworth dealership charges. Okay, that's what they're charging. Let's see, I think we can charge this. That's the wrong questions. The question should be, what are my expenses? What's my investment? I should get a certain return on my investment. If I have $2 million invested, then I should be able to get 5% for that. Because I could get that someplace else with that $2 million. So what are my expenses? I got to cover those. What's the return on my investment that I think is reasonable? I should get that. And then how much profit do I think I should be able to have annually? When I know those three numbers, then all I got to do is figure out how many hours I'm going to sell. Okay, I know how many hours I'm going to sell. You can get that from Fullbay. And then I can just do the quick math. Okay, this is what I need per hour to be successful. And it's not helpful to you or to your customers for you not to be successful. And so they should want you to be successful also. So now I know what my rate is. Now I can look at Joe and Harry and the Kenworth dealership and see if I'm in the ballpark or not. Oh, I'm way over. All right, then I'm going to have to adjust something because I'm not competing. What am I going to adjust? Well, I might be able to trim my expenses. Maybe I'll accept a little less profit. Whatever you do, that's up to you. But the point is, you need to know how to set your rates in the first place. And then as your expenses change or your things change, then you change your rates too. But you need to do it annually, not every 5, because people are going to fuss when you say, yeah, I need to raise my rates by $30 an hour.
You think a 3% price increase is bad. Try to pitch a 20% price increase. All right, we have a few minutes left. We got a couple questions coming in, but I thought I'd look around the room, see if there's any hands or questions from the audience here.
I just want to say something that really changed my life, my business, as labor rates are concerned. I was terrified to raise my labor rates just like most of you probably are. Somebody told me one time, as long as when your customer leaves, they feel like what they got from you was more than they got charged for, doesn't matter what your labor rate is.
Coming back to value. As long as they get more than what they feel like they pay for, it's a good deal, regardless of the price.
Right. And I learned a valuable lesson. I used to own a limo company. That 10 years from now, that owner-operator is not going to remember what you charged him to change the radiator on his truck when he hit a deer. But I guarantee you, he will remember that you got it in and you got it out in the same day, and you saved him whatever heartache was going to come from being down for 2 days. And that extra couple of dollars you had to charge because you needed to be profitable, they don't remember that. They will remember how you made them feel.
And I remember from my previous life, I was a consultant working with customers on IT implementations, and the customers that would beat me up over price increases, would try to squeeze every single penny out of me. Those are the customers I didn't actually want.
Well, it's that 80-20 rule is what it is, right? Totally, it works.
And you got to look at that. He's got a point. Sometimes you got to look at your customer base and say, one time I had a hard talk with a customer and called him up and said, hey, we're having a reevaluation of our customers. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, we have more business than we have technicians, and we're strongly evaluating which customers we're going to continue to do business with. He didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
So I haven't had to fire customers often, but I have had to fire customers. And there are some customers that need to be fired. And so I remember one particular one. We'd done business a while, but he was always a struggle. Hard to please, hard to get money out of, had to have it right now. You know the type. And so finally I just had to talk with him. And I said, look, we seem to be having trouble pleasing you on a regular basis. It's hard for us to do it the way you want it to do. And so I think you're probably going to be better off with someone else working on your trucks. I know we will be.
Well, another thing with that, though, and I have learned this the hard way, because, sometimes you're fearful of losing a good customer. Sometimes the best thing that can ever happen to you is that customer goes away. And if they come back, sometimes they're the best customer you ever had, because they realize real quick. I actually had a customer, the one that I fired, the man was one of my best friends. He was in my wedding. And he had no idea he was being that bad to our employees. And he came in and spent 2 hours apologizing. He bought the whole shop lunch. That man was a great customer after that.
Well, it's funny you should say it that way, because the only guy that I ever told that to is back, and we work for him now. He's a way better customer.
Well, we're out here at the Gila Resort and Casino here in beautiful Chandler, Arizona, excuse me. And so, you're playing poker. You're calling a bluff. This is a business negotiation that we're having. And so sometimes they may say, oh, I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to go find a lower price supplier. Talk, right?
Yeah, I think transparent conversations with your customers is always key, right? I mean, and honesty in all things, and be transparent with them just as they're going to be transparent with you. It is what it is they're running a business on their side as well. And if they're any good at what they do, they should be having those conversations with their customers as well. So there's nothing wrong with just having an honest conversation with somebody and seeing where it shakes out. With all my kids even, I always say the truth comes out when you put everybody in the room, right? And so you just put yourself and the customer in the room and you just talk it out. You just go, okay, well, this is where we're at. This is how I see it. We love your business. We want you to be here, but this is what it costs to do business. And like you said, backing into, at the end of the day, what you need to make to cover your nut and make your business profitable is important to you. And that being expressed to the customer, I think, is fine. I think it's a fine conversation to have. And if you leave the room at the end of the day and you guys don't agree with each other, then so be it. And you go find the next one, They will be out there. It's shocking. There's always another customer out there, right? So
we are reaching the top of the hour here. I think we've had a lot of good topics on hiring the right people, building a company based on integrity, thinking about the business and actually running your business, including things like having hard conversations with customers. So as we wind down here, any final thoughts from our panelists as we think about building a better shop?
I have a final thought. It's interesting to me that you chose us to sit here. Anybody here could sit here and do the same thing. I mean, you guys have been doing this a long time. You know what to do, but it's fun to talk it through.
I have a closing piece of advice for store owners and managers. Stop managing out of fear. Stop being fearful that if you raise your rate $1, they're going to leave. Stop being fearful that if you have a hard conversation with a customer or employee that they're going to leave. Just be honest with them and tell them what they need to hear, but do not manage out of fear. I've seen so many bad things happen when people are fearful of things and they avoid them.
All right. Well, let's give a round of applause for our panelists here. Thank you very much for joining us.